Okay, Barry is not here from the detention center. I guess we've already transacted what business we probably need to do there. Did have a long conversation with Secretary Brown, and I know that we did have a community corrections meeting this week. Because they did get a little grant, and they should have a little money coming back after we document the savings and so forth based on the House Bill 463 language. He still runs a little census short of what his capacity is. Hopefully, there's some talk about a little bit of the language or regulations or, I guess, administrative support there because of ACA accreditation and the program base to try to make, we're already, to be perfectly honest with you, Secretary Brown knows Marion County very well. And in his address today, I guess Governor Scheer made special mention of the fact that they did not renew their contract with Marion Adjustment Center. And all the prisoners now, because of House Bill 463 and the changes in the corrections policies that can now be housed in, the numbers that skinny down enough and shrunk enough that they can all be housed in state or jail facilities. We didn't need private corrections anymore. So I guess from the standpoint of being able to keep all that money in a county or a state position, I guess it listens well politically. So anyway, no, we're still trying to hopefully see if CCA repurposes that or continues to rehire back current staff. You know, kind of caught in the middle on this one from the state life standpoint. Everybody else is really glad to see Matt go. We're different. Okay, Robbie, EFS?
Currently we're at 1,475 runs for the year. Other than that, things are going pretty well.
Thank you.
They're short of slow to be inmates come back.
How long is it going to take them to retread? Okay, emergency management.
Well, then I'll go to the hazard materials class for Saturday is still on. I got enough people registered. And then Frankfurt is set September 24th to have an emergency operations class here in Marion County. So we'll get more details about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, animal control, we're blessed today. We have both our animal control officers here today. Y'all had a good report. And,
Yeah, the grant was pretty exciting. I know they're gonna do some stuff, but I'm gonna email them back and they're actually gonna release it to the newspaper. They'll do the formal press release. I don't know how, I sent a tearjerker letter, and I guess it maybe made them cry. I don't know, but they picked us. That will hopefully, I don't see it because this area, you know, you don't get a lot of cat adoptions, but we'll give it a try. You know, it's free to us to use. If it helps, it helps. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We'll turn in all that data to them. And then, you know, they'll help us like Main Street get these adoptable cats out everywhere too. That's kind of part of their deal, is they'll take our pictures and they'll get them here and try to get transportation for these cats to get out of this area. We were really excited about it. Things are running good. I put in there about the request for new and updated equipment. And Jimmy will vouch for me, he will stand for me.
Are you healed up? Are you healed up? I know you got.
Yeah, well, yeah, I am, but my ears, I don't think will heal up because we're still dealing with the person. You know, it's like we don't have anything to work with anymore. Everything's either broke, and I'm telling you, and Jimmy will probably tell you he didn't want to touch those dogs, did you? No, he wanted, none of them wanted any part of it. I had a simple leash, and that's it, and that's all she had, you know, because there's nothing we can work with. We've actually had a dog, you know, in another part of the county that I had to stop the garbage truck and say, hey, you guys, we can't catch the dog. He won't go in a trap. But he will act like he's friendly for a second, then he'll come after you. So I stopped the garbage truck guys from getting bit. But, you know, we truly need that stuff. You know, it's just stuff. And I mean, you don't, you know, I try to mark the things that were the most needed. I mean, yeah, there's tons of things they make we could use, but I mean, these are the most cost efficient and the best, I'd say, as far as us to use.
What's your, let me ask you this, in looking at the equipment you need, you've got outlined here, what's your guesstimate as far as the total?
But I think it was 1,100, 1,100,
That's
1,600. Yeah, around that.
So, I mean, and this is equipment that you, option you feel like you have to have to be able to perform your job.
Everything we got's broke. Our cash poser broke, they don't, you know.
But would, if the court go along with it, why wouldn't we approve a motion for expenditure up to, say, $1,500 for new equipment purchase?
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve up to $1,500 for new equipment purchases for animal control.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Masterson?
Yes.
Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell?
Judge, if I might add, I do want to thank the animal shelter for their assistance. What you were referring to, we executed a search warrant here recently along with the Kentucky State Police and run across several vicious dogs. And if it hadn't been for the help of the animal shelter and rounding them up and getting them put away, we'd probably still be out there fighting with them. But we're running into situations more and more all the time where indeed this could arise, and I do appreciate what you guys done for them, but we need them when we get in situations like this to help better control people we're dealing with and make sure the officers and deputies are safe along with animal control.
Well, I'll say this, I've noticed in your report where I think you're asking the judge to get with the mayor, just kind of remind especially dispatch, because that's where the calls come from.
Yeah.
But, and have the city administrator, the mayor, remind them that our policy is, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but our policy is that there are no after-hour calls unless it's, as you guys have listed here, unless it's a dangerous fight or a dangerous situation, okay, or a harmful situation, in respect to your time and so forth. Do we all agree to that?
Yeah, that's been our policy.
So,
You know, I had a conversation with the chief and the mayor and the city administrator about the call-out policy should be for life-threatening emergencies only. And I don't know, maybe the dispatcher feels like they just got to pass it on. I don't know what it is, but you all still have the option of making the run, or as far as I'm concerned, unless the emergency nature of it dictates, and you all have the authority to make the call.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of what we're running into though, and it is just the city cops is, you know, they're calling, so they figure this out, and they're like, no, this dog is biting these kids. It's, you know, I'm not putting it in my car, I've got to tell them right here, you're gonna come get it right now. And you know, what do? You know, you have to believe them and say, yeah, okay, we're gonna take your word, we're gonna come get this dog because it's vicious. Well, then you get there and they're, you know, snickering and, you know, it's licking everybody. You know, and that's what I told them, don't, you know, I don't waste your time, don't waste mine. You know, let the dog go, he's gonna go home. You know, and I feel like he's, you know, they will call Kay, they quit calling me, because I'm done. You know, like I told them, this is ridiculous. You know, I'm sorry, but there's a cat in my yard, don't call me, don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. You know, so, you know, it is being beneficial to tell them no, but it is sometimes beneficial for, you know, just to make sure that we have that backing, that people know that we aren't telling them a lie when we say, no, we cannot go out for something this small.
We made it plain that a barking dog or a cat in a tree is not an emergency.
Yeah.
So you mean they called you out and when you got there, they would be laughing and sniggering because you come?
They've actually had the dog in their hand, and I mean, told us that the, you know, and I just probably a month ago took 2 new keys out to the jail. I said, here's the new keys, you have them. You know, or the police department, I mean, he said, you know, here's the keys, you have them. And then they'll call and say, we lost them.
Does the police chief know that they did this? Laughed since?
Yeah, he says that he doesn't allow his officers to put animals in their vehicles, and that's not part of their job duty to pull the animal.
Well,
So he knows that they called you for nothing.
I think
and
this
then
place
laughed
needs to
at
learn how to handle those calls, that, you know.
Yeah, I do
If it's a call that's not important, don't call these people.
You know, I'll address it again, I'll just make up a letter.
We don't want
Well, I can tell you from experience, the dispatchers feel obligated to take, once they receive a call, whether it's a dog complaint or whatever, they feel obligated to pass that along to wait to eliminate any problems they may get if they didn't forward it to the proper authorities, whether it be animal control, sheriff.
Well, I understand what you're saying.
That's the problem there. It may be something that can be better communicated between the county judge, city of Lebanon.
Yeah, I think we need to work on that, because I see the dispatcher just taking off his shoulders, calling them.
That's what,
And we asked them to just fax us a report, that if it's a non-emergency, fax it to the shelter, we get it the next morning. And, you know, there is a couple that are really good about doing that, you know, but, you know, like I said, specific, like Jimmy, he called me himself, you know, you gotta help us. You know, and that's not something, you know, at first I did tell him no, I'm not supposed to go out after hours, he'll tell you, you know, no. And then he said, well, there's like 14 of them, and I'm like, oh crap, you know. And I understood, you know, we went, but I mean, as far as, you know, there is, you know, it just helps to give a little reminder sometimes that.
So there's a little inconsistency about some that actually do facts and
Yeah, there is some that do
weigh the
fax.
circumstances and make a decision, executive decision, if it's not an emergency, and don't bother you, and there's others that do.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I'll see if I can follow up and put some clarity and maybe get a little better cooperation there.
Okay.
Also, while you guys are here, I know you have in your report about the vehicle on a part-time employee. Let me say, first of all, you guys know I support you, you do a tremendous job. All I'm looking for here is a couple of things. One, I've had some individuals, of course, lives in my district, so I've had some individuals that live in the area and so forth. I don't know why there's a animal shelter vehicle there 24/7, yada, yada, yada. I guess the point here is that whatever the court deems necessary is fine, but we just need to make sure that we follow policy. You know, I read where, you know, goes to work every Sunday, stops, gets the inmates, then goes on out to the animal shelter. I guess the concern there is that I don't know of any other part-time employee that takes a personal or takes a county vehicle home. Mr. Brock, for example, part-time, he parks his here, he comes, gets it, and goes out and does his job. I don't think we have any part-time paramedics, EMTs, obviously, that do that. And the other side of that is liability, okay? Because I'm not sure that since they're not a full-time employee and they're not on the clock that particular time, if that's covered. So I guess the point here is that you either do it for one or you do it for all. I don't think it's a great, you know, and believe me, it does a great job to support. And I know you've got an issue with the PD, okay, and not handling animals. That needs to be addressed. We need to handle that, okay? That needs to be addressed. But with that being said, I don't think you can do for one and not do for all. And I think the court either has, I don't see where it's that much more difficult to, I know it's extra 4 miles or 3 miles out to the animal shelter, get the truck, come back, get the inmates and go back. But that's how the policy's always been.
Well, I mean, I had a part-time vehicle when I was part-time. And I
Yeah,
guess
and I'm
because
not-
I lived out in the county, nobody saw it, that it wasn't a big, you know,
And let me say this, I understand, that
Yeah.
didn't make it right then. but
Yeah,
make it
well, and
right
I
now.
have to, you know, the disease we pack home is absolutely abnormal. You know, it's nobody does that. And to be honest with you, is once you're in that shelter, you know, whenever I go to the shelter, I go in, and whenever I get home, I actually leave my shoes in my county vehicle. Because I had packed on Road, I had packed on a pair of sleds for my children, you know. So, because what's in that vehicle, you know, you just have to, that's why, and so for Brett, you know, and sometimes there is times that they'll dump dogs at his, you know, house or dump them at ours, and we'll say, Brett, can you please just come get them? You know, I can't do this, I've got all the kids here, you know, and he'll take them out there. And I mean, I can understand, but like in the morning, I had a blowout today, so I don't have a vehicle. So Brett, in the morning, I'm gonna come to town in my personal vehicle, and then I was gonna have him drive that one out to the shelter. And that way, but normally he only drives that vehicle on Sundays.
And I understand that, and my point is, I totally understand that. My point is that, is it justifiable? Is it, and it's all about policy, okay?
Yeah.
Just like I said, if we're gonna do it for one, and it's just the way I feel, the court might, you guys might feel totally different. But I think if we're gonna do for one, I've always felt that way, we need to do for all. If we're gonna provide you with full benefits as a full-time employee, it has to be provided to all. We can't pick and choose. So if we're going to allow one part-time employee to utilize that vehicle, then we gotta let, we need, that's fine, we need to let Mr. Brock, we need to let, look at our part-time paramedics, if they're coming in after hours. We need to look at a lot of things. That's the only point. And I think I know it's a benefit, but it's really a nice little cushion for a part-time employee to have a county-paid vehicle. It saves him 15 minutes on Sunday. Don't mean that wrong, but, and I understand the disease and so forth, but then again, you can hear that from the paramedics, the EMTs, look what they deal with, blood and so forth, and what they deal with. They still get in their vehicles and drive home. We don't take them to EMS and drop them off. So the point is here is, again, you guys do a tremendous job, appreciate it. We just need to be fair to all. It's not picking on you guys, it's not picking on anybody. It's just, we gotta be fair in our policy. So if we want to set a policy that we allow, that's fine. As long as our insurance will cover it, that's a great thing. But if we're not gonna be fair at all, then I personally, again, I disagree with it.
The issue I see with it is, which is fine.
Yeah, if it's not covered in insurance, you shouldn't drive it anyway.
You said exactly what the issue is. I mean, that is, is there a reason to treat one department differently than others? Maybe there is, and maybe there isn't, and that's, and you certainly can do it.
But you have to have justification.
One thing that will have to happen, that's fine to do that, whatever, but when he works weekend, like Saturdays, he works,
Saturdays and Sundays.
there'll have to be some adjustment made, like if the shelters, was it open at 8? When he, then he'll have to open maybe at 8:30 or 9, because he'll have to, he starts work at 8, so if he's at shelter at 8, then he'll have to go back and get the inmates. So the shelter won't actually be open until.
Yeah, maybe,
Because,
and I understand that, I thought about that, so.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
40-minute.
but we don't want to pay overtime.
Well, he's a part-time employee, so you're not paying overtime.
Well, I mean, if he comes in, if he's scheduled to work from 8 to 12,
I understand you pay him extra 30 minutes, he's still not overtime.
but I mean, do we do that, do we have to
Well,
authorize it?
that's my point. I understand it's $5 worth of gas or it's a real-time hearing. I understand, but the point is county attorney, as I stated here, if you're gonna do it for one, you do it for all.
Yeah, I
That's all
understand
we're
that.
asking.
I'm just saying, if his work time is the shelter scheduled to be open from 8 to 12.
So unfortunately, you'll have to be there at 7 o'clock or 7:30, but he should be paid for that time.
Then he'll get extra hours, instead of 4 hours, he'll get 6 hours.
That's correct. Or he'll get extra, that's right. He'll get
Because it takes-
4 hours, he'll get 6.
Or we'll have to work that out, because that'll have to be, if he's got to be open at 8, then.
Right, but there shouldn't be any overtime involved because she's a part-time employee.
Yeah.
I know the old Jeep that we're talking about has been used by, I don't know who else, Sheriff, I guess you had it when you were part-time before you went. And I never did make any issue with that because I knew that picking up dogs along the way or at home or whatever was part of the job. I guess the fact that the vehicle is there and it's older and it's insured, if the extra time we have to allocate is going to cost. Personally, I guess I need to verify is that as part-time employees, I'm sure they are covered if they're authorized to drive a vehicle.
And you have to be authorized, that's the point. I don't know if it's ever been authorized, the other side, Kay,
If he's not out, he's picking up the, you know what I'm saying?
well, that's what I'm saying, but, it's just, you and I spoke about this last week. You said you understood it. Judge, I spoke to you last week. You said you understood it. That's all I'm looking for is just some understanding in regards to policy and what's right. Okay? So when you make a decision for the animal shelter, you need to also think about the other departments as well. And when you make a decision for the other
What other
departments.
vehicles will the other departments drive? It's what I'm
Well,
asking.
for example,
We're not going to buy vehicles for other departments.
I'm taking over part-time.
There you go. Mr. Johnson, I apologize for that. So do we, he's on call 7/24, so let's, instead of him just taking it to fire scenes, to emergency situations, so let's allow him to drive at 7/24, because he's on call 7/24.
We are too, but we don't drive ours.
Not a part-time employee. Not a
But
part-time
as far as, he doesn't drive it.
Yeah.
What I'm
Here's the
saying
thing.
is, if he's not insured.
But I mean, you're saying it's not far.
We're gonna have to go get the.
No, he's insured,
Yeah.
to drive because he's an
You're just
employee.
saying to be fair to all
Right,
groups. You're
right,
just
because
looking to be
it's,
fair.
again,
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Johnson's
we're
a prime
saying
example,
it's-
sitting right here. Mr. Brock's a prime example, sitting right here. Mr. Brock drives his personal vehicle to this lot, gets in his vehicle when he's on duty and drives. It would be a whole lot easier for him to just drive that county vehicle as a part-time employee home. He only works part-time, so he's not driving every day. Mr. Johnson drives his personal vehicle. Now, we had an issue with that in the past, but that's been corrected, thank goodness. But he's on call 24/7. So do we let him drive his all the time? So you've got situations. My point here is, if you're going to be fair to one, be fair to all. I'm not saying not do it, but if we do it for the animal shelter, we need to do it for these other part-time employees as well. Don't you agree we need to be fair?
Well, I mean, but a lot of the supervisors are driving brand new vehicles and ours are falling apart. So let's be fair and buy us a brand new vehicle.
Bring it up.
Get into that.
Bring it
You know
up.
what I'm saying?
I don't think I've turned anything down you've ever asked for.
We asked for a new vehicle.
When-
And
did you ask
a
for
lot of
that?
supervisors are making $40,000 a year. I was told, we only got, all supervisors got a 2% raise, except us, we got a 3% because we don't make near that. And that's what I'm saying, if we're gonna be fair, let's be fair across the board to everybody. And, as far as, you've had a few people, I understand you've had a few people ask you about, but why the animal shelter has to be always some kind of form of scrutiny? There always has to be somebody asking about this, somebody asking about that, and
I can assure you,
do
I can
understand.
assure you, Mr. Lee can assure you, as well as Jacob Brady, as well as Mr. Turner, if he was here, you're not the only one. They get it as well, okay? It's just issues. And let me say this, there's a lot of things in the county we need to work out, and I agree, and I think we work hard at doing it every day. I think this court, the judge, the county attorney, I think we work really hard at trying to be fair, okay? Don't take it personal. Again, it's not the animal shelter. If it were the animal shelter, I wouldn't have voted to approve the purchase of new equipment that you say you need badly. I understand and agree with that. I wouldn't agree to purchase a copier. I wouldn't. I think I've tried to do all I can as a master personally. I'm just saying we need to be fair. Would you agree, Mr. Johnson?
Please.
There you go. So that's all we're asking about. And if you have issues, I know. And Sarah, let me say this, if you have issues with your salary or so forth, then absolutely, we can talk about that. It's, we'll talk about work with you any way we can.
I know, I'm just, my main concern is, I work most Saturdays for free. Any Saturday we work, me and her work, we're working for free, because we're packing overtime.
Excuse me, can I say something here? I want to cut you short,
Okay.
but the issue here was driving vehicle home.
Yeah, I know.
Are we getting away from the issue?
No, because I'm
Because every time Mr.
Because
Lee
it
gets
does
called out on a
help.
snowy or rainy day and he has to come in, I think you're working for free too, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
All right.
But I'm saying, let's try to stay with the issue, and we'll address this.
Yeah, 'cause you're going down the wrong path.
I'm saying with Greg, the reason why it's there is because, there's instances in the mornings when he goes in, he's taking a dog. Or whenever, somebody comes packing him to his house.
And I
In
understand.
his personal vehicle,
I
no, he
understand.
don't have to pack that
Let
dog.
me say that- let's
He
say
doesn't
this.
need personal vehicle, all of it, dog,
Don't pull them out.
Don't-
Go out there and get your vehicle, and go back
Yeah.
home. We're gonna pay for your time.
Yeah, who's
I
fault?
mean,
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
tell them to take
I'll
the
say as
dog.
far as this, we can't have them both ways either.
That's
We
right.
can't tell you can't drive a vehicle, and then I pay for your time.
That's right.
We gotta do one or the other, for sure.
That's correct.
And we don't want him to put a vehicle in his, a dog or cat in his vehicle,
So-
drive out there.
You know,
We
let's
don't
move-
want that to happen. We
Let's
don't want
move
you to have
forward
to do it
here.
either. Neither
All
one
I'm
of us.
saying is that, and I'm just asking the court, okay, because I spoke to you, Kay, about it, and I appreciate your conversation. Judge, I spoke to you about it. And bottom line is that I would recommend that at this time, we adjust his hours, pay him extra, what we need to do, that county vehicle for that part-time employee be left at the animal shelter until he goes and picks it up, and then he can use it as he does to do his job, just like other part-time employees do, as Mr. Johnson, as Mr. Brock, all other part-time employees we have. I suggest that start immediately, okay? If the judge foresees, and this court foresees the need to allow part-time employees to have a full-time vehicle, and there's justification, we need to address that issue. But until that issue is addressed and fair to all, then let's put it back on a fair playing field, okay?
That's fine, but like I said, my main concern is if you're saying he's not insured or he's not.
No, he's
driving
insured.
that vehicle, is it,
He's-
my concern
that's
is picking
another
up those four
Mr.
inmates.
Magna, correct from, if he's clocked in or if he's working for the county, he's insured. if he's not on the time clock and he's driving a county vehicle as a part-time employee, I think we set ourselves up for a tremendous liability. Would you agree?
Well, I mean, if he's operating the vehicle without our authorization, you know, and of course, if you've given him the authority to sort of take that vehicle out and, you know, as long as he's not on a joyride someplace, then he's probably covered under the insurance policy. Certainly
But
we
he's
are.
covered. Here's the
But-
bottom line, he's covered. When he goes out to the animal shelter, picks that vehicle up, goes and get the inmates, comes back to the animal shelter, he's covered in route and back. Okay? There is no question. Is there any other questions? Sarah, do you have any other questions?
You have to get with the judge, to figure out a schedule or something, so that if the shelter has to open at 8, whatever time, if it's supposed to be open from 8 to 12, if he can do it or not, whatever adjustments, because he don't want to go on his own time back to get the inmates to be there at 8, so he'll have to make some adjustments time-wise, you know, everyone, you know.
And it's
And
difficult.
he's due
It's
his
difficult.
pay for it.
Right, that's what I mean, because he'll be in the county vehicle going back to get them, and so, unless it's gonna open at 8:30 or instead of 8, you know, whatever.
And again, if the court wants to allow it, that's fine too. But let's allow it for all, and let's be fair to all. That's all I ask.
You
It's
know,
not,
every
you know,
circumstance is different. Like Hayden, he doesn't leave his vehicle at the courthouse or county center, and he does take his vehicle home. And where he drives it, he needs to drive. You know, that's kind of left up to a little bit of employee discretion on the necessity to use the vehicle on what occasion. The position itself dictates the need for whatever transportation that they use. And I think that, you know, in our case, in Marion County, you know, we have 3 animal control personnel, staff members, and they are all busy. And they use the time well, and the facility's well cared for, well managed, and I applaud the operation of it, because I know you work hard. I guess my biggest concern is I want to be consistent, and I want to be accommodating to the point where we get the job done the best way possible.
in the fairest manner of the taxpayers' money.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely concerned about the taxpayers' money. But, you know,
I
going
don't
forward.
recall how we addressed, but didn't we have something in the administrative policy that we adopted that for use of vehicles? I don't remember specifically what it says.
We had this issue sometime back with 2 other situations, and that was, I can remember when Judge Herder had the situation, and he addressed it, took care of it. Now, recently, I can't attest to that.
I don't remember what, for some
It's
reason, I was
gonna
thinking we
unfold.
had something in our administrative code that this court adopted. I don't remember what it,
Yeah.
but it had something to do with, I'll go back and look at it.
Yeah, and whatever the administrative code is, we follow it, and if it falls within the guidelines, that's a great thing. But if it doesn't, then we just need to move forward.
So do I need to park the truck somewhere?
You need to park it.
EMS or it's the courts?
You're emergency manager 24/7.
We'll be
Actually,
fair
you
about
know, maybe, that's my point.
Guys, it's hard to look at each department, what is fair and what's not fair, what has to be done, what doesn't have to be done. It's either, you get to a point where either it is or it isn't.
That's my point. So, and to
If
end it,
it
that's
is,
my point.
it is. If it isn't, it isn't.
And it might seem painful to you, but I don't mean it to be painful to the animal shelter. It's painful to Mr. Johnson, it's painful to everybody. You're exactly right, Master Masterson. So that's the point. The court needs to set a guideline, a policy, and abide by it, and be done with it.
Across the board.
Thank you. Hallelujah. Good to hear somebody say that. Thank you.
And everybody that comes in here, whether it be from wanting funding or whatever, their thing is the most important thing in this county. They've got a reason. You do, he does, Jimmy does, Tommy does.
Everybody.
In your world, it's the most important thing, but it's part of a whole big picture. Always keep that in mind.
No, I mean, I agree. I just, I don't want any of us to be hauling or doing any more than what we're already doing. That it's just easier, other than him stopping, getting out, going. But I mean, that's, I agree. But if it's, something you all want to do and that, that's fine with me. I mean, it's not the issue of that. I just want it to be more convenient, you know, and it always just seems like it's just, you know, something, we get everything straightened out and then it just be something else, you know. So, I mean, but that's, you know, whatever you guys decide, your call.
My life's that way, okay? All right, let's
Okay.
go. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Clarify that for one evening.